On today's show, sometimes, every now and then, the San Diego Padres are just awesome, aren't they? Recapping last night's absolutely explosive game between the Padres and the Nationals, but only on the Padres side. Recapping the blowout, all the big offensive performances, talking a little about Matt Waldron and some potential trade ideas, or at least just dipping my toes in just a tiny bit, because we're getting close. 5 days away for the trade deadline. Lots to get into, so let's get started.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Thursday, July 25th. As always, I am your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always, the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno, the best handle in the game as always, and at LO_Padres for updates on the show and the occasional retweet of my own tweets. You can also check out my work over at Just Baseball, a fantastic website where I'm going to be writing about Padres deadline targets. We'll be talking a little bit about them at the end of today's show, and then also my podcast, Baseball versus the World, about evergreen, silly pop culture related baseball topics like movies, scenes, all that sort of stuff. Go check that out. Wherever, just type in Baseball versus the World, you'll find it. Today's episode, guys, we're going to be recapping and there's actually a lot to talk about because I actually think that last night's game, aside from the blowout victory that it was just a blast, and especially against this Nationals team that I don't think there's any ill will towards anymore. I think we just kind of own them too much for there to be any ill will. And no, to the Nationals fans, the ill will is not because you completely owned us in the Soto trade. That's not what it is. Like this National team isn't very good right now, but they will be at some point, right? And largely because of us. But no, it's not that, guys. It's because of how you treated Profar. And we're going to be talking about Profar too, by the way. Of course. I don't care if we already know what he is. I'm going to talk about Jurickson Profar as much as we can. But first of all, let me just tell you guys, today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The stay over there. Hold on. How do I phrase this? The right stay. Not the stay over there. Wherever you're going. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. All right, let's start with it. First, let's start off with the less exciting thing, which is Matt Waldron in this game going 6 innings, 3 earned runs on 4 hits, 2 walks, 4 Ks. Strikeout stuff has been a little bit low lately. 4 Ks this one, 5 in the last one, 1 against the Atlanta Braves, which was the Braves start was probably his worst start that he's had in a while. And in fact, if you actually track back all the way to, let's see here, if we go back all the way to, let me see if I can just find it really quickly, to May 28th against the Marlins. If I'm not mistaken, 11 out of 12 of Matt Waldron's starts since then have been quality starts. For those who don't know, a quality start is 6 innings with 3 runs or less given up. Now, that's not necessarily the best stat in the world because I think your ERA would technically be 4.5 if you did that like all year. But it basically just goes to show there's something to be said for consistency. And when you're getting consistent performances out of a guy that, frankly, I mean, just be real, I couldn't even remember the guy's name sometimes prior to the season, and especially last year. To be getting that out of it, and especially when you have a good offense, is why Matt Waldron is like second for like the Padres MVP. I know that sounds weird. I get that that's weird. I understand that Cease is better, but it was so unexpected. You know what I mean? The step up. Obviously, Profar is number 1, worst player in baseball last year, and then the number 1 hitter in the Padres lineup this year. But I think that it just can't be understated. In this game, I thought he looked okay, though. I don't think that he got like, I think he just had a bad inning, right? Similar to what I always bring up when we're talking about Matt Waldron, like that D-back start. And early on in the year, he was known for just having like these really disastrous innings. And that's how it starts off in this one, right? The single from Jesse Winker and then the home run from Juan Yepes, right? So that was unfortunate, making 3-0 in the bottom of the first. It looked like we were headed towards a bad Matt Waldron start, especially because if you're like me and you're just saying, okay, well, he's got to be bad at some point, maybe it's going to happen here, but it doesn't. So I actually think that this is, well, the peripheral stuff, only 5, I think, what did he have, 6 whiffs in total in this game? Like nothing insane on his pitching repertoire, 8 whiffs in total, 5 from his knuckleball. Knuckleball did look good, though, I will say, and a lot of people were swinging in the zone and they just could not manage to make contact with it, which was great. But I will say that for him to bounce back after giving up 3, I just think that speaks to what kind of pitcher he's been this year. The guy just goes for you, and I bet that's why they were like, we have no problem. You know what I mean? I bet Mike Schultz sitting in that dugout being like, hey, it's okay. He'll figure it out, and he does. And he doesn't give up too many hits. He's been good. He's been good for a while now, and I do think that one of the storylines heading into the second half of the season was going to be like, how legit is Matt Waldron going to be? Like, is he going to be able to keep this up? Is he going to be improving as a pitcher? And he has just been. Matt Waldron's the type of thing that the Tampa Bay Rays are good at churning out, where you're like, who is this guy? And then all of a sudden he never gets lit up. That's just huge. He's not going to have necessarily the big game. I don't know if he's even a starter that like you feel amazing about against like in a playoff game, but we're not even there yet, so it's whatever. But all in all, just a really another solid, splendid start for my guy Matt Waldron. Quality start machine. It can't be emphasized enough that basically ever since the D-backs start, which was back on now, let's see, that was back in May 5th, he's been a guy who's given up he's given up 4 earned runs since May 5th. He's only given up more than 3 earned runs once, and that was that start against the Braves. I mean, come on now. Not all of them have been quality starts because some of those starts he's gone 5 innings, but bottom line is, my God, guys. I mean, it's just, leave a comment. Honestly, leave a comment. What is the last time that you can remember that the Padres had this good of a pitching development story? I'm talking like, you got to go backwards, right? Like, you got to start thinking about, I mean, under the Preller regime, I mean, I don't know. Like, you might have to go back to like a Tyson Ross, right? Like, I just genuinely don't remember. And Tyson Ross was only, I think, 2 years that he was pretty effective. And then he got hurt, and then he fell off. But I'm just saying, like, I can't remember the last time the Padres had such an effective out-of-nowhere pitching performance. We've even, we've had offensive guys come out of nowhere. We're going to talk about the offense in a second, but I don't remember it being this good for the pitching. And he just always looks in control. Clean-shaven Waldron. Many people are saying clean-shaven Waldron. Is it the best pitcher in the National League? I don't know. Now, old Matt Waldron was great, but clean-shaven Matt Waldron, I don't know, folks. We'll have to see. Really brings out the radiance in him and the color of his eyes. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what I'm saying right now, other than the fact that Matt Waldron was good yet again, and the Pirates should be happy. But this was not about them. This was an offensive palooza, and they picked up the pace for Matt Waldron, despite the fact that he did start off with a 3-0 deficit with none other than, look, the world may end in a few years. It may end in 20 years, but apparently in 50 years from now, Luis Arraez still be driving in them singles. He's the first one to strike, allowing Jackson Merrill and Ha-Seong Kim to score. He needed that because I feel like Arraez hasn't been having as many big hits in a while. That I don't know if it feels like that. Now, granted, he is at the top of the lineup, so maybe he doesn't always have the best batters, behind him, and he's not always getting the RBI opportunities. That's fine. But all in all, he still has been an okay player that we're still waiting for him to really pick it up. You know what I mean? We really want you to pick up your offense and just be that menace at the top of the lineup, right? You saw the Mets. They put Francisco Lindor at the top of the lineup, and he's been raking ever since, right? I'm hoping that Arraez could do something at least somewhat similar to that. Lindor is obviously a much better player, hits for more power, but I'm just hoping that he picks up the pace just a little bit. Him going 2 for 4 in this game with 2 RBIs. Love to see it. And also, he's actually hit a couple doubles lately, so hopefully Arraez is starting to pick things up and really just be that pest that's going to be a real big bother for teams to face when they start off. But guys, that's not all. We're going to be talking more about the offense and some trade stuff in just a second. But first, I want to take a second, obviously, to talk about one of our sponsors, and that is the good folks over at Supply House, folks. And here's the thing. With them, you get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades. Supplyhouse.com. It is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, electrical appliances, and products, and all that sort of stuff. Whatever the skilled trades that you need, they can help you with the products that you need. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands. I know, that's, wow. I mean, that's a number that the human mind can barely can barely process, folks. That's what, Supply House ain't no joke. Go check out Supply House, guys. You could just go there, benefit with all their different benefits. They have all these different professionals as well that can help you out and, help you with, picking the right parts, I guess I should say. Get a bunch of trade masters. You get dedicated phone lines, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies and more from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. And also, guys, I want to take a second to talk to you about one of my favorite sponsors, I mean, all of them are my favorite sponsors, but this one has been an OG, and that is the good folks over at Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the game, by the way. That's right. So if you don't know, and you just found out you were free for the night, say, oh, the happy hour got canceled. Oh, the girlfriend can't go out tonight, or the boyfriend can't go out tonight, or that assignment got canceled, or hey, maybe you're a student, whatever. Maybe you're in college. You're like, oh, class got canceled. I don't have to learn about philosophy 101 or whatever the heck. That's what's great about them is the prices go down and they have all sorts of deals constantly, in-zone deals. They've got flash deals, exclusive in-app things. You can get your seats ahead of time. It's really, really cool, guys. Save even more when you choose a section, right? And let Game Time choose the seats. That's what the zone deals are for. And you can see pictures of where you're seated at if you're a visual person. They got you covered with that. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, folks. They've got everything for you. So go check out the app and you can see it for yourself. And because you're listening to this show, I got you covered, man. We're going to help you out. If you download the app and create an account, you can use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed with Game Time. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing as always. I don't like how I said it there. Came off a little cringe. But anyway, what was not cringe was the Padres offense. We already talked about Arise, but man, was it a party in this one. Should I just go down the whole line? Because everybody got in on this one. 12-3 final score. The Padres accumulating a grand total of 20 hits, their most that they've had in a while, and it actually is very reminiscent of, for those who don't remember, the 24 runs, I believe, that they scored against the Nationals back in 2021. And don't get me wrong, 2021 was dark times. So, thinking back on 2021, I know that's not the best thing to bring up now, but it was great. And it was kind of almost a sequel. So while they didn't have as many runs, obviously, the 20 hits were amazing. 2 for 4 game from Arise. Donovan Solano, he gets a hit. He's brought into pinch hit. His hit actually comes at the end of the game when the Nationals have to bring in players in order to pitch, basically, which just absolutely killed me. Demaro Vargas is the last pitcher that goes for them. Dylan Floro is kind of the only one that was ultra effective in this game, hilariously enough, but whatever. Gives up 2 hits, and one of them was to Donovan Solano. I just thought that was funny. It was just a funny moment. It's always funny when you see the position players have to come in, right? And unlike the designated hitter debate, it's no, because this is it's already a lost cause. You don't want to have a rule where you're actively putting bad players in there when it's not a lost cause. So just push my universal DH propaganda, even though we won that battle. So I don't know why I'm pushing it. Anyway, Jurickson Profar 2 for 5 in this game. And of course, he had a 2-run homer in this one. This man just hates the Nationals. My God. First he had the walk-off. Then he had the grand slam the day after they turned into poo-poo babies. Just amazing stuff from Jurickson Profar. It's really cool that for a guy who has been hitting so astronomically well, that while he is regressing slightly, still has an 858 OPS, still has one of the best on-base percentage, best productive at-bats in the league. It's cool that he's still starting off right where he ended the first half. You know what I mean? I just love to see that. Because while, yes, he's going to get a little bit worse, he's not the best player in baseball or anything like that, but he has just been the MVP of this Padres team. And him 2 for 5 with the home run in this one. It's just the stuff that you love to see. And in terms of overall WAR this year, I think Jurickson Profar, let's see where he is right now, by the way. He is 26 in Major League Baseball. For those who don't know, big thing with him is he's not adding too much defensively. That's why there's a lot of players ahead of him, like your Christian Yelich's and your Britton Doyles. That might surprise you of the Rockies. But bottom line is this man's been cooking, and we love him very, very much. It's funny that the Padres don't have, and this is kind of a testament to baseball. I know I'm going off a tangent here, but the Padres last year had a couple of top WAR players, specifically in Xander Bogaerts, Ha-Seong, and especially Juan Soto. And this year, their top F-WAR guy is all the way down at 26, but then everybody else has been good behind him, right? They're hitting better with runners on base. So it just shows you that it's not losing Soto wasn't like the end of all things. The end of all things was the fact that this team just has weird vibes, I think, all the time, right? Like, I think that's the bigger issue. But you're just seeing that they're doing so much better this year. And I just want to shout out that this is a team sport, and just losing one player does not change everything. Everybody else can step up, and that's what's happened this year, from your Cronenworths to your Jackson Merrills, to your Profars. Like, there's been so many guys who contribute. Donovan Solano, right? So that's great. David Peralta goes 0 for 1 in this game. He's brought in to pitch it. He hits like a weak ball too off of that position player that had to come in. That was funny. Xander Bogaerts, 4 for 4 with a walk. Excellent stuff. He's had a ton of multi-hit games ever since coming off the IL, and not all of these were softly hit. They were singles, don't get me wrong, but they were actually they were hit decently hard enough, right? And they weren't fluky or anything like that, which is the number one thing. Even if you're not hitting the ball hard as heck, at least it's not fluky. 470 batting average, 490. The one hit that he did have was at least hit moderately hard at 90.1 miles per hour off the bat, even if it was a grounder. It was that early one early on in the game. He also hit one 106.4 miles per hour off the bat, which is very, very well hard hit. So love to see that. And just in general, it's just good to see him, even if it's just picking up the batting average, right? Like, at this point, it's fair to call this a like lost season for Xander Bogaerts, just because of how bad he's been for most of his years. OPS is still just at 605, right? To give some context, Tyler Wade's at like 570 right now, right? So like, he's not been very good this year, but I'm hoping that he can turn it around and be good for a team that's just trying to make the playoffs. And then maybe next year they could figure some things out. He can fine tune things. Brought up Correa the other day. If he can figure it out, I think Xander Bogaerts can. Manny Machado 2 for 5 in this game with an RBI double and a walk. Just that gorgeous swing. He's another one. Almost a lost season for him, but he's been turning it around for way long now. In fact, I mean, his splits, it's like he just woke up. It's almost like he was injured and maybe shouldn't have been playing to start the season. But OPS was 633 that first month, then 610, and then 904 in June. And so far through July, 740. So he's been a little bit down in July so far, but I think he's going to end it pretty well. So still nice to see this from him. Really good stuff. And hopefully he can obviously redeem himself as we get into August and September. Jake Cronenworth, the least partyful one of the bunch. He struck out 3 times in this game, but he does get 2 RBIs. He did get an RBI, 2 RBI single in this one. Jackson Merrill, 4 for 5 in this one, with not just a bunch of singles, but also a double and a triple. That's right. And also, by the way, Kyle Higashioka, a home run in this one, going 3 for 5, and he also hit a double too. He is just, every day that this man is in, it's more and more clear. The Higgy hive. I need to look. The Campizano hive was an important part in my life. Let me be very clear, very important part of my life. But I think that at some point, as a man, you must move on. You know what I mean? And I think it's time for me to move on, and I'm going to start talking about the Higgy hive. I need to tweet about it more because, Frank, first of all, it rolls off the tongue much better. Isn't it weird that the Padres have gotten, now this is the second year in a row, and this isn't like a trend. I think it's just funny that this is the second year in a row that they've gotten a lot out of their backup catcher, like the one that you went into the season and he was supposed to be the number 2 catcher. Last year, of course, it was Gary Sanchez. And what's hilarious is that Gary Sanchez was like horrible this year. I think he's in AAA now. He had a 96 WRC plus in 31 games or 51 games for the Brewers. They set him down. That's 91 WRC. 96 is the worst in the world, but he wasn't doing anything defensively for them. It's just amazing what Gary Sanchez did out of nowhere for the team last year. And then this year, Kyle Higashioka, while I don't think that this can possibly continue to this degree, I mean, is he just becoming at age 34 is he like a Mike Zunino? You know what I mean? Not the same power level, or at least I should say raw power. I think Mike Zunino, he was like the first overall pick in the draft one year. For those who don't remember, he was a catcher on the Mariners who was like occasionally good defensively, and then you had to hope that his power checked in. Otherwise, he was basically just not a very effective player, and really maddening to watch. That's kind of what Higashioka is doing. He's just slugging at an unbelievable rate. I mean, on the season, he's slugging 540, guys. His WRC plus is 127. Yeah, he doesn't walk and get on base at an amazing clip, but who cares? If he's going to be a guy that plays good defense and at the very minimum can just call good games, do pretty well in that regard. And I don't think that the Padres starting pitching being bad is any fault of his. It's certainly not Campizano wasn't making it better, right? But for him to do what he's doing is genuinely unbelievable. Like, I just cannot believe that this is happening. I really can't. Like, I don't know why he's been this good. Now, obviously, one of the reasons he's been in the league so long is because of his defense. But even still, this is the second year in a row that the guy that was expected to be the backup has been so good for the team. And I think that while I do think that there are questions about the Padres, and we're hoping that Ethan Salas can be that great, sort of, what's it called? What's the word? Sort of catcher of the future, I think, in a lot of ways. As of right now, Higgy's been really dang good, man. He's been really dang good, and he deserves a lot of credit. And, man, could you imagine if he hit a triple? When was the last time a catcher had a cycle? I wonder. That'd be something to look into. But him and Jackson Merrill, I wanted Merrill to get the cycle, and that would have completed, made the whole thing a full circle moment for the team, because, like I said, they also lit up the Nationals about in 2021 when they scored 24, and Jake Cronenworth was the one that had the cycle. So I thought we were going to have a little bit of history repeat itself moment, but it did not come through. But nonetheless, I'm happy, and you should be happy, because the Padres now head into tomorrow's game with a great matchup. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute, as well as a little bit of little trade ideas and whatnot in just a second, guys. But first, I got to talk to you about our good friends over at, I want you guys to remember. Do you remember? Let me test your memory. Who was the sponsor at the top of the show? That's who we're talking about. That's right. This episode of Locked On Padres is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities too. That's right. You want to go to LA, you can do that. You want to go, if you're a New Yorker, you want to go to Boston, you can do that. If you're a Chicago and you want to go to St. Louis, you can go there. Whatever you want to do, they help you out with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay. So go check it out, from hotels that overlook, stadiums to family-friendly resorts, whatever your personal situation is, whatever your budget is, all that sort of stuff, they've got you covered. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. And then next up, of course, is another legendary app, and that is the Prize Picks app, folks. It is the #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just pick from 2 to 6 players and go over their stat projections. You go over or under, and you can do it for all the baseball games that you want, all the sports you want, frankly. We're going to have football coming up soon, but if you're going to be watching Team USA, man, you can watch them rack up the gold medals this summer, and you can make a Prize Picks lineup of players across basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and many more in as little as 60 seconds. So just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. And speaking of locked in, I'm going to help keep you locked in, folks, with this promotion. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. And just like that, everybody, thriving and vibing back into the final segment of today's Locked On Padres podcast. Firstly, I want to start this off by saying, everybody, give me your trade ideas, because I would love to go over them, frankly. And yes, we are officially at that point in the season where I'm currently looking at my phone because I got scared. I got a Jeff Passan notification, and we're at that part of the season where we're just like, oh man, put those notifications on, man. It's kind of crazy that I thought that we would have got a trade by now. Honestly, it would not shock me if you get one today or tomorrow, only because the Padres will have, it's an early game. This next one, hold on, let me make sure I'm right about that. It is an early game, right? Yeah, it's an early game. It's 12:05 for me. So that's, what is that? 9 o'clock? Wow, what is that? A morning baseball game? You West Coast people, man. You West Coast people just live the life sometimes, I swear. But anyway. It's like, how March Madness, the games are always during the day. That's the only time I get that experience. You guys get that for every sport. It's really cool. But anyway, in that game, let me just say really quickly, Dylan Cease versus Patrick Corbin. I'm expecting a very, very good start from Dylan Cease here. I think he gets at least 7 strikeouts. I think he can go pretty deep into this one. I would be only slightly worried because we know how baseball works. We know how the Padres can sometimes work. Did they use up all of their magic in yesterday's game? Possibly, right? But they are facing Patrick Corbin, one of the worst starters in Major League Baseball, but I am still worried about it because he is a lefty, and we know that the Padres can struggle against lefties sometimes. And again, did they just use up all their offense yesterday? And I really do think that getting the sweep here would be big. I know that that's weird, right? I understand that, like, you shouldn't be going by just sweep or bust, but considering that they're going to have a couple of really tough series ahead of them against the Orioles and then the Dodgers, and then I think after that, they things get a lot easier. So it's not the end of the world, but you just want to see it because you want to see how well they look. And if we get a better idea of where we are in the playoff picture, because we have the deadline coming up. So forget the good teams for a second. Ignore what I just said there. It's all about how they do for the deadline. And then they've got the Rockies, Pirates, Marlins, Pirates, Rockies. I mean, like, I'm not a strength of schedule person, but if they go on a run, it could be there. The Pirates aren't that bad, but even still. Like, and especially with Skeens and Jared Jones and some of those guys. Brian Reynolds. You remember when Brian Reynolds was like the top trade target for us? That was pretty wild, right? And speaking of trade targets, Jesse Winker drove in a run yesterday, and I was wondering what you guys think, my listeners and viewers. I'm kind of curious, like, would Jesse Winker be kind of the perfect bat for this Padres team? Because he's a guy that you could put in the outfield. You can get rid of the Ben Johnson, right? Not necessarily the best. I'm sorry, Bryce Johnson. Who's Ben Johnson? Detroit Lions offense coordinator. Anyway, just so you guys know how my mind works. You know, I do think it depends greatly on what the Padres think is going on with Tatis. We have heard, we've been optimistic. Hopefully he'll ramp up baseball activity, but that's something we don't know for sure about, right? And just because they're hopeful, they're optimistic. Again, be very cautious about this team. They have been weird with injuries in the past. Although I think they've been a little bit better with it. So be cautious about that. And Jesse Winker is the type of player, and I believe he's a free agent after this year, the type of player that you don't have to give up too much for, right? You wouldn't have to give up too much more. I know that he's not a plus defensively, but it's not like Bryce Johnson. We're expecting too much. And frankly, Tatis wasn't doing amazing defensively this year either. But Jesse Winker, you know, does that make sense? Maybe, right? Just getting that sort of player who can come into your lineup and just be much better. And it's not like this is a one-year fluke. This would not be an Adam Frazier type, right? Just $1.5 million. You can then reset and say, okay, we'll figure this out in the offseason, whether or not you want to keep Profar. We'll see, right? We'll see. But I think that it is something to at least consider, although I really am doubtful that I don't even know if they're going to get a bat, right? Because the Solano thing feels real. They have Arise. I don't know if getting a bat necessarily would make too much sense. I'm just saying that if they do go that direction, it'd probably be an outfielder that you could just be easy with. Or you go the other direction, which is someone like Randy Arozarena, which I know people have talked about. I've seen a lot of y'all tweet. Ran Diego. You know, you've had Randy Vasquez and Randy Arozarena. Only thing I'll say on that is I kind of believe in Randy Arozarena being like a bounce back guy. He has years of control, which is why I think it would be a little bit pricier to acquire him, which is why I'm for a rental if they need to fill in for Tatis. But I understand that he's having a down season. I still think the Rays are going to ask for a decent amount for him because of the years of control. And I think they know that it's not entirely like he just stinks now, right? Randy's BABIP, if I'm not mistaken, this year is incredibly low. He has a lifetime BABIP of, let's see here, 317, and this year it's 247. For those who don't remember, that's batting average of balls in play. So he seems to be getting a little bit unlucky in that regard. His WOBA and ex-WOBA has a bit of a difference too. So I think he does have a little bit of bounce back potential in him. I don't think he's amazing, but again, a guy to keep an eye on. If they did get him, my first reaction would be, oh, they're ready for Profar to leave. That would be my reaction if they got Randy Arozarena, because then it's like Tatis in right field, and then Randy in left, and then Jackson Merrill in center. That's what I think they might do, right? They might do that. And when is Arise a free agent? Is Arise a free agent after this year? When the heck is that son of a gun a free agent? Because if that was the case, then yeah, you could bring in and just have Jurickson Profar be your DH, potentially. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah, Arb's settled. No, he's still under control. Okay, that'll be interesting. But anyway, folks, some other names that I want everybody to keep an eye on. Speaking of the Rays, Zach Little and Zach Eflin. I think that they could be interesting at the trade deadline. We've made deals with the Rays before, and I think that team is definitely selling. They're 51-51 on the year. I don't see them doing anything. And frankly, this year was set up for them to fail from the beginning. On top of the Wander Franco stuff, that is awful. You also had the Shane McClanahan, Tommy John. Just seems like this is one of those off years for them that they should spend trying to rebuild a little bit. I don't know how much of their starting pitching they would trade. I don't know if Isaac Paredes, their best offensive player, could be on the market, but I would look at Zach Eflin and Zach Little. I don't know if those guys would cost too much, and they are the epitome of what the Padres need. 4.14 ERA for one of them, 4.46, I understand, but the FIP is better for Zach Eflin, and Zach Eflin was also really nice last year. He doesn't walk anybody, so he's not giving up free bases at the very minimum, right? And he generates a decent amount of ground balls. So he would be awesome if you could acquire him, frankly. I really do believe that. I think Zach Eflin could be an awesome acquisition. But I don't know. I don't know if they're going to want to keep him. But you know how the Rays are? He's owed $13 million. You know that they might take that into consideration. So Zach Eflin is another one to watch out for. I think Yusei Kikuchi and Jaime Garcia, that could be a combo to look out for as well. It would solve two of your biggest things. I know it's not sexy. I get it. He's not the type of guy to win anything for you. But I genuinely can't get a grip on what this trade market is. I really can't. So I'd look into that, and Jaime Garcia has been pretty good. Although I will say the Blue Jays are giving a vibe of like, what are you guys going to do? Like, do you want to be stuck in this situation where you're in purgatory forever? I don't know. So we'll see. Frankly, it would be bold if they traded Vladdy. They can't, but it would be bold if they did. But anyway, that's another topic. Last one I would look at, I know this one isn't that exciting, but Tyler Anderson and Carlos Estevez, that could be a really nice package. Both of those guys, not really big names. Tyler Anderson, though, been solid. He tosses some good innings. He's actually someone that I've talked about in the past before. And Estevez has been really great, and he's a free agent after this year. So again, I think it would be really cool if the Padres acquire rental-type players, especially because I still think that this team is susceptible to completely falling apart, as we saw, right? Look at the All-Star break, right? So I think that getting rentals and not overcommitting, kind of doing what you did last year. I know that you're going to say, well, it didn't work last year. It's like, yeah, but it was okay. But like that to me just told you that the team was doomed. They bought low on a bunch of guys. G-Man Choi, who was excellent as a platoon guy, basically, came back and couldn't hit at all. I'm pretty sure, like I joked that we were on like game 8 and I had more hits, or I had the same number of hits as G-Man Choi. Go find that tweet on my account if you want. And then Garrett Cooper was the other one acquired, and he actually did okay for them, right? So I do think little additions is what this team could use, which is why I think of Tyler Anderson, Yusei Kikuchi, Jaime Garcia, Carlos Estevez, those 4 guys, relief pitchers and starters, I think could actually be pretty interesting. But stay tuned for my article where I go down it just a little bit more. And I will say the D-backs have been playing better lately, so take out any of my D-backs ideas, because I think they're also getting Jordan Montgomery back soon. I just saw Ketel Marte homered as well. He's been on a rampage, so that team's going to be interesting in the second half as well. But just every day, stick to your Twitter feeds because it's coming. There's got to be a move coming soon. I really do believe that. This weekend's going to get wild. And as someone who's going to be celebrating part of his birthday this weekend, I can't wait. And I will be doing, of course, updates and coverage. At the very minimum, if we don't do anything during the weekend, I will put out like some shorts and reactions for you guys. So remember to subscribe to the channel and keep it locked at Javiipeno, JAVIIPENO, for other updates. But until that next time, everybody, you've been listening to Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod better than the Padres themselves. Until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful, my Fire Faithful homies. Take care.